Welcome to the deep dive.
Hey there.
Today, we are plunging into, well, really compelling source. It's a YouTube video transcript titled, How to Be a BTCH, Take Your Power Back, Become Magnetic, and Stop Being a People Pleaser.
Right. And our mission here really is to unpack this specific perspective. The source uses this provocative title and language quite deliberately. It's laying out an argument for shifting away from people-pleasing. And it does this by embracing certain traits, traits it actually redefines as characteristic of what it calls a bad bitch.
Right. It definitely challenges traditional notions kind of head on.
It does.
So let's dive into this transcript and see what core ideas and, insights we can uncover about this particular approach to, well, reclaiming power and building confidence.
Okay, let's get into it. So the source starts by immediately tackling the word bitch
Yeah.
and all the negative baggage that, comes with it, especially when it's applied to women.
It points out how the term is usually applied to a woman or a girl to mean someone belligerent, unreasonable, malicious, controlling, aggressive, or dominant. And it argues this usage is often like a criticism. It's leveled at women who aren't conforming to expected behaviors.
And what's really interesting here is the contrast the source draws. It claims that often the very same traits, being dominant, aggressive, maybe seen as unreasonable when applied to men, they're perceived positively.
Oh, right.
A dominant man is a leader. Aggressive is just part of his nature. Unreasonable is headstrong. But for women,
it's bitch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the source sees this clear double standard and asks, how can the exact same word have two different meanings? It literally makes no sense. And it concludes that calling a woman a bitch often just boils down to her not living up to someone else's idea of how she should be, which then leads to her being labeled unpleasant.
Okay, so this perspective then leads the source to kind of reclaim the term.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. Within the framework of this source, being a bitch gets redefined. It means being independent, valuing your individuality, setting boundaries.
Having self-respect.
Right, and possessing confidence. It's a whole different meaning.
Okay, so it's taking the word and flipping it on its head.
Yeah.
Using it to describe someone who is owning their power and prioritizing themselves.
Precisely.
Understanding that redefined term seems really key then to grasping the mindset shifts and habits the source is going to recommend. As a way away from people-pleasing.
Exactly. Yeah, with that definition in mind, the source then dives into several key mindset shifts it believes are necessary to make that move, from people-pleaser to this redefined bad bitch.
And the first one is a pretty strong statement. Energy is everything.
This point is really about making your personal peace and your energy the absolute top priority.
Yeah.
Above everything else.
Even above maintaining relationships that might be. Well, the source calls them toxic, whether friendships or family.
Yes, exactly. It contrasts this directly with the typical people pleaser who the source says is more concerned with harmony in her toxic friendship group, in her toxic family circle.
They might be okay with suffering just to keep things smooth.
Right. And even if they think about leaving, they get tangled up in how to let everyone down gently, avoid hurting feelings.
So the source's stance is much more direct.
Very direct. It says you need to evaluate the energy people bring into your life. If relationships bring what it calls low vibrational energy, which seems to mean draining, negative, maybe toxic interactions,
right,
then you should be willing to let them go. Even that means being alone for a bit. The bitch, in this view, is good on her own. She won't accept company just for the sake of it. It's about protecting your inner state.
That really connects to the next shift, doesn't it? I don't need you to like me because I like me.
It does, yeah.
Yes.
This is all about centering your own opinion and your own needs over seeking that external acceptance. The source gives some really specific, kind of relatable examples here.
Like saying no to plans just because you genuinely want to stay home and lay in bed.
Or like when you're getting ready to go out, not texting friends asking, what are you wearing? But just choosing an outfit based purely on what makes you feel good.
Okay.
The core principle the source is pushing here is making every decision based on whether it makes you feel good or proud or happy. Not worrying about judgment or disappointing someone or what they might think. It's a real shift towards internal validation.
Got it. Then the source introduces this idea of being unbothered AF.
Right. This is described as mastering something the source calls the law of detachment.
Okay, what does that mean in this context?
Well, it seems to mean wanting relationships, wanting good outcomes, but not needing them. Not to the point where you feel desperate or you're trying to control everything and everyone.
And it applies this to dating specifically.
Yes, directly. Suggesting it means, observing a person's behavior, seeing if they meet your standards, rather than getting anxious and trying to make him act right. If someone isn't aligning with your standards, the source's prescribed response is just a simple, bye-bye.
Wow, okay. Detached.
Yeah. And this detachment, according to the source, lets the bitch believe good things will come easily. It contrasts this with the nice girl people pleaser, who the source claims lives in inferiority, insecurity, and fear, always feeling like she has to prove herself.
And this unbothered attitude, it even affects how you handle criticism.
It does. The source suggests this kind of powerful non-reaction.
Like how?
Like seeing silence or just letting someone make a fool of yourself while they're trying to provoke you. Seeing that as comeback enough. The thinking is, why the hell should I take the time out of my day to try and think of a comeback? If you're genuinely detached from their opinion.
Interesting. Okay, another crucial shift highlighted is your time comes first.
And this isn't framed as being selfish. It's positioned as prioritizing self-care and your mental health. It really reinforced that earlier point. You don't need an excuse to say no to things that drain you or just don't align with what you want to be doing.
The source uses that classic analogy, right? Filling your own cup.
Exactly. The idea is you need to fill your own cup first. Only when your cup is full can you genuinely give energy to others who, as the source puts it, deserve it, or whom you love and cherish.
And this is set against the nice girl figure.
Right, whose battery is running on 10% and whose cup is never full because she's constantly trying to serve everyone else.
Right.
The source is pretty blunt here, saying this inevitably leads to resentment.
And there's a warning in there too, isn't there, about being too available?
Yes, a key point the source makes is that being too easy and too accessible can result in people potentially walking all over you.
Because you're always giving.
Exactly. They don't need to give you anything back or reciprocate your love and effort. The source actually calls this a lose-lose situation.
Okay. The final mindset shift in this section is called attitude always.
Yeah. The source proposes here that real confidence, that feeling of feeling like a baddie, it comes from within. It's all in her head, it says. It's not dependent on external things like money, style, success, status. And a core belief presented here is that the attitude you hold towards yourself gets mirrored back to you by others. Everyone else in your life, stranger or not, is going to adopt the same attitude you have towards yourself.
So people will reflect that idea and treat you in that same way.
That's the claim. So the people pleaser who thinks they have to do specific XYZ actions to gain people's affections, well, they inadvertently teach others to believe they're not worthy of love and friendship just as you are, without having to earn respect.
Whereas the bitch, in this framework...
No, she's the shit and everyone else believes it. That's the quote. And this attitude translates into how she acts.
Okay, like in dating.
Yeah, for example, it means dressing and acting as she very well wants to, because she knows deep down that's good enough. She's not agonizing over finding the correct outfit or the correct personality to make this guy fall for her.
While the people pleaser might be worrying about what to wear or whether to go 50-50 on a date.
Right. Driven by the hope that doing those things will make the guy like her more. It's about external validation versus internal knowing.
And within this attitude point, the source specifically talks about handling haters.
It does, yeah. It offers a very specific take on the psychology of a hater. They're described as fundamentally insecure people.
How so?
Well, the source says they compare themselves to others who have what they perceive as desirable resources, things like attractiveness, confidence, style, maybe just positive energy. Seeing someone else possess these things, according to the source, it triggers the hater. Because it makes them feel like you are better than them or in higher standing.
And that feeling leads to projection.
That's the argument. Phrases like, you think you're all that and she needs to be humbled, apparently stem from this insecurity. And then they nitpick certain flaws or hyperfixate on anything they might deem unattractive. An outfit, hair, friends, physical features, anything to try and talk you down. The goal, conscious or not, is to feel like they're back on the same level.
But the bitch understands this dynamic.
According to the source, yes. She knows her perceived strengths, knows she's attractive, dressed amazing, radiates this amazing positive aura. And she understands that the hate is often just rooted in the other person's jealousy and insecurity.
While the people pleaser takes it personally.
Exactly. Might even change their behavior because of the hate, because they have that underlying need for everyone to like her.
Okay, that paints a really clear picture of the mindset shifts this source is advocating for. Now, let's move into the lifestyle and habits it connects with this bad bitch persona.
Right. The first habit highlighted is quite practical. She sticks to her weekly schedule.
So planning things out.
Yeah, the source presents planning your week in advance as a key way to make sure your priorities actually get met. Your daily tasks become the micro steps to get you to your bigger goal.
It sounds like it's framing your time differently.
It really is. It suggests living a life where your spare time is consciously dedicated to achieving your dream life, honoring your needs and your dreams. This automatically leaves less time, or ideally no time, for what the source calls meaningless tasks.
Like what?
Things like waiting for a guy to text you back
Yeah.
or constantly doing favors for everyone.
Okay, the source says the bitch is booked and busy with whatever suits her, which interestingly includes rest.
Yes. It explicitly mentions scheduling dedicated time for rest, like blocking out the whole day, just committed to rest. It's part of the plan, not an afterthought.
Another critical habit the source talks about is developing this sense that she has no fear of being perceived.
Mm-hmm. This means consistently working on your self-image and her self-esteem. It's fundamentally about accepting herself just as she is, rather than feeling that constant pressure to change everything about yourself just to fit in with society.
Does it suggest ways to do this?
It does. It mentions things like journaling nightly or going to therapy to work through traumas, her insecurities, and raise her self-love. And the source actually shares a really specific personal story here.
Oh, yeah.
About receiving hate comments about her body, being called flat, too skinny, ironing board, even grasshopper.
Wow.
And she talks about how she learned to respond. Despite those comments, and even acknowledging her own younger self felt insecure about the same things, she now says she likes her body type.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't fit that socially acceptable beauty standard of, hourglass curves.
So what's the takeaway from that?
The core lesson she draws, according to the source, is that you got to be your own validation. You can't wait for it from others. And you have to create that confidence right now. It's presented as an active practice, like looking in the mirror and affirming yourself.
And this is contrasted again with the people pleaser.
Right. Who might change their whole wardrobe to hide the things that she laid or try to make her body look different just to appease others' potential opinions. The bitch, in this perspective, genuinely doesn't care about that judgment. The mindset is sort of, what business do you have making an opinion on me anyway?
Okay. Another powerful habit the source highlights is that she embraces solitude.
This means being genuinely comfortable doing things completely alone, like shopping, going to the cinema, even attending concerts solo.
And there's another anecdote here.
Yes, she mentions seeing a musical, Kanani, alone, and describes it as the best experience ever.
That's interesting. How is that contrasted?
Well, the source contrasts this with what it calls a typical people-pleaser teenager's mindset, which is like, oh no, I need to make more friends because then what am I going to do on the weekends?
Right, the fear of being alone.
Exactly, which can lead to begging people to come with her just to avoid being by herself.
So the source champions doing things solo.
Definitely. It calls it the power of solo dating. Doing activities by yourself. It's presented as a way to boost confidence and, maybe counterintuitively, to send a powerful message.
Well, what message?
The message of, I'm okay on my own, I'm not desperate, and I'm not chasing.
Ah, okay. Looping back to that detachment idea.
Exactly. The source's view is that needing something desperately can actually push it away. The people pleaser, feeling inferior and attaching their worth to others, might attract people who take advantage. Conversely, according to the source, sitting alone confidently in a restaurant sends a different signal, like I'm good. And I'm not desperate for anything. And that, it claims, is what attracts the right people who will value her.
And there's a point here about authenticity in friendships, too.
Yes. A key mistake discussed is trying to be normal and trying to control the perception that other people have of you, just to make friends more easily.
Which leads to superficial connection.
Right. The source argues this attracts friends who are friends with a mask, not the real you. Whereas embracing your own quirkiness and your weirdness, even if it means fewer friends initially, ensures the ones you do get will actually like you for you.
Okay. The source then moves on to how this persona handles conflict, arguing that the bad bitch is a classy confronter.
Yeah, this is interesting because it pushes back against that maybe stereotypical negative image. It's explicitly not about being aggressive or picking fights.
So what is it about?
It's about setting clear boundaries and, quote, not taking any shit, but doing it in a way that protects your energy.
Does it give specifics on how to do that?
It does. It suggests steps like maintain eye contact, stay completely calm, even if you're furious inside.
What?
Because according to the source, being overly emotional is the quickest way to lose an argument.
Okay. And how does this compare to the people pleaser in conflict?
Well, the people pleaser, according to the source, gets overly emotional. Maybe sad and crying, maybe angry and shouting. Why? Because she's too attached to the outcome or the other person's reaction.
Whereas the bitch is detached.
Right. She knows she'll be fine either way.
Yeah.
So the recommended response during confrontation is simple and direct. Things like, no, that doesn't suit me, or I don't appreciate that, or I would like if you didn't say that or treat me like that again.
And no long explanations needed.
No. The source stresses you do not need to give them a billion reasons. If someone can't handle that clear boundary, can't accept a simple no, then they're deemed not worth speaking to.
There's another personal story here, isn't there?
Yeah, the source mentions previously being a crier during confrontations, but now being able to stay calm even if someone is, like, screaming at me. It's about being okay with potentially being seen as the villain in your story if, deep down you haven't done anything wrong or disappointed myself.
Okay. Another defining habit is that she focuses on her goals and her mission.
Mm-hmm. The source suggests that once you find your purpose or your passion, really committing time to it daily helps all of the external noise kind of just fades out.
And this is set against inaction.
Exactly. It contrasts this with someone who might just sit around thinking about what they want but never actually does it. The bad bitch who is just sitting around scrolling on TikTok all day. Includes that blunt reminder, dreams don't work unless you do.
So in this framework, focusing on goals means actively doing something.
Yes, pursuing a side hustle of some sort, starting a business, volunteering, creating a charity, or being a content creator. It's about having a project or mission. And the Force actually mentions a specific tool here.
Oh, right. Squarespace.
Yeah, Squarespace is mentioned as a platform you could use to, say, build an online store, sell merchandise, use it for your content creation, maybe sell courses, schedule appointments, or do coaching.
And it lists some features.
Things like their Fluid Engine design system, drag and drop tools that the source says are good for beginners, analytical features, inventory management if you're selling merch. It also points to a free trial and a discount offer linked in the source description.
So it's presented as a concrete example of a tool to help build those goals.
Exactly. And the source uses her own example of setting up her merch store using Squarespace, framing it as a way to grow my skill set and explore my creativity. It's part of that theme of continuously pushing outside your comfort zone for growth.
Okay, and to kind of wrap up these lifestyle habits, the source uses a comparison, right? Lola and Athena.
Yes, exactly. Lola represents the people pleaser.
How so?
Well, Lola relies heavily on others' opinions. She holds back on her dreams because she's worried they're annoying or cringy. She won't buy clothes she loves because she thinks, oh, I could never pull that off. She sticks to what's safe just to fit in.
And she's easily influenced.
Very.
Yeah.
By her friend's lifestyle, maybe partying when she should be studying or exercising because she doesn't want to be seen as a tryhard. And in dating, she's all about external validation, asking friends what to text back, trying to constantly skew the perception just to get a boyfriend.
Okay, so that's Lola. And Athena.
Athena embodies the bad bitch, as defined by this source. She, quote, gives no FS what impression she's giving off. She's laser-focused on her own goals, setting up her website, starting her side hustle, going to her Pilates class.
And in dating.
Completely different approach. Athena replies authentically, just as the first thing she thought of, because she doesn't feel the need to manage the other person's perception. She wears whatever the hell she wants, purely for herself. She has a vision for this piece, apparently even showing up to the grocery store in a fur coat, sunglasses, and high-heeled boots.
Wow, okay.
Athena's focus, according to the source, is just on fitting her goals into her schedule. Doesn't matter if the dreams are big, like working in fashion or being a content creator. She schedules the tasks and does them, regardless of potential judgment.
Okay, that comparison makes it very clear. Let's move into what the source specifically calls the dating chapter. This section seems to really zero in on self-worth and setting high standards in romance.
It definitely does. It kicks off with a really powerful mindset statement. I am not your experiment to play with. I am the dream girl.
That's quite a statement.
It is, and it reflects, within the source's framework, a very high level of self-worth and confidence.
And the source makes a strong claim about first dates here.
A very strong claim. It argues that the first date a guy plans for you is a direct reflection of how he feels about you and how much effort he is going to place into his relationship with you.
How does it illustrate that?
It uses specific examples. A guy, in this view, won't take his actual dream girl for just, coffee or a walk to mess around or play it casual. No, he'll supposedly do anything to be with her, plan something significant. He saves those low-effort dates for the other girls, the ones who are just options in what the source calls his roster. Why? To save their time, money, and resources.
Ouch. So the bitch, from this perspective, sees herself differently.
Completely. She sees herself as the final destination, not just someone to be kept in a roster or stuck in a vague situationship. She's confident enough, the source claims, to only entertain anyone unless they are going to take me straight to girlfriend status.
So it's all or nothing, basically.
Pretty much. If a guy, in her view, can't see her value or isn't willing to match the high level of effort she puts into herself, then he's simply not worth my time.
And this is contrasted with the people pleaser?
Right. Who might accept any date just because at least he's asking me. Valuing that external attention more than her own standards.
Okay, this leads right into the next point. The bad bitch is never a backup option.
Yes. This includes having really clear standards about dating multiple people at the same time. The source states it very plainly. If I find out a guy is dating another girl besides me, instant ick.
Does the source acknowledge that dating around is common?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
It says, I totally get the logic behind it, no judgment at all, but then immediately pivots back to her personal standard. I'm a bitch enough to say, no, I deserve better than that, and either you put everything into me or you don't get me at all.
Wow. So very high expectations from the get-go.
Extremely. According to this perspective, if a man meets her, interacts with her, and still doesn't jump at the chance to pull all of your energy into me so that you can earn me, she is instantly turned off, is demanding high effort and exclusive focus almost immediately.
And the source gives personal examples again.
Claiming her past relationships recognized she was the prize, and they chased me until they got me. She also emphasizes that earning the bitch's respect and trust actually takes time, because she's constantly evaluating energy and alignment.
And the contrast here
Is with the people pleaser, who gets so obsessed with the fact that you're giving her attention that she becomes all yours completely. And according to the source, might even flip into masculine energy by actively trying to get the man to choose her.
Okay. The third dating point is act like the prize, and you will be treated like one.
Right. The source puts forward this idea that men are hunters at heart and have this innate desire to do all of the chasing.
Okay. And the implication for women.
Is that, from this perspective, stepping back, allowing them to do the chasing, keeps you in your feminine energy. And theory is, they will then try to convince you of their worthiness.
Is there another benefit claimed for this approach?
Yes, that it automatically filters out all of the low-value men, defined here as those who won't put in the effort.
Is there an example for this one?
Yeah, a specific university example is given. Male friends were apparently intimidated by a girl they saw as cool and confident and beautiful. She seems too difficult, maybe too prestiged, wouldn't just easily talk to them, would require weeks of time into pursuing her.
So what did they do?
The source claims they instead approached girls who were giving them the eyes, giving them attention, essentially because she was easy, even if they weren't actually as attracted to those girls.
So the key point here, according to the source, is that acting like the prize might mean less attention overall.
Yes, but the source frames this as a good thing.
Why?
Because the attention you do get is supposedly from men who are actually deserving of you, who desire to actually be boyfriends, and are willing to wine and dine you, potentially provide for you, because they understand these are the requirements of being with you.
Okay. Next, the source presents a pretty controversial claim. The bitch knows men are easy, and it's always their loss.
Yeah, this one's quite direct. The source contends that women, based on her observation, typically level up after breakups, claiming they get pretty predator, I get smarter, I get more successful, and I make more money.
And the really striking claim is
that women don't need men, men need women.
Does it offer any backing for that?
It vaguely points to what it calls actual studies that show that men are more likely to be depressed if they don't have a romantic partner, whereas women are more likely to be successful when they're single. This is presented as the basis for the assertion within the source.
Okay.
So from this perspective, cutting off a man who's maybe taking advantage of you isn't seen as a loss at all. It's viewed as something that will lead to the biggest glow-up of your life. Breakups become the greatest catalyst for self-improvement.
And there's personal experience shared here, too.
Yes. The source talks about going through multiple breakups and feeling herself leveling up each time, seeing the opportunity in them. It reinforces that belief. I am my own best friend. I am my own soulmate. So in this view, if she loses something or someone, it just wasn't meant for me in the first place.
Which is again contrasted sharply with the people pleaser.
Very sharply. Who, lacking that self-worth and seeking external validation, might equate a breakup or not being appreciated with, I'm not worthy of love and I wasn't good enough. They see it as her loss.
This perspective on attention and loss seems to tie into the next point. Not getting attention is a huge compliment.
It does. It builds on that idea of filtering out low-value men. The source argues that the type and amount of attention you receive actually changes as you shift your internal state.
How so?
Well, moving from seeking external validation, where you might get loads of attention, maybe like as a teenager, to being genuinely confident, where you might receive less overall attention later. The source says you only receive what you put out.
So seeking desperate attention attracts
Full vibrational, low-effort people, according to this view. Those who DM everybody who aren't looking for something serious.
Okay.
So the core message here is, if you're not getting attention from loads of men, say you're in a club and your friend is getting all the approaches, it doesn't necessarily mean you're not beautiful enough or worthy.
What does it mean then, according to the source?
It means you are not as easy. You might be perceived as intimidating for having standards, which, again, the source asserts is a good thing.
Because the attention you do get will be different.
Exactly. It will supposedly be from someone willing to meet your standards, effectively filtering out the ones the source calls losers, who are going to end up wasting your time anyway.
Right. Finally, the source really emphasizes the importance of your non-negotiables.
Yes. The bitch, in this framework, has a long list of them, whereas the people pleaser is described as having very fragile boundaries.
And this is linked directly to confidence.
Directly. It's about being so comfortable with saying, you either give me this or I'm done.
While lacking confidence makes you fear.
Scaring men off. Which makes setting and sticking to non-negotiables really difficult. These standards are presented as deeply personal, based entirely on the lifestyle and treatment you want to receive.
For what kind of examples does it give?
Things like expecting the man to pay for every single date, having a mandatory weekly date night provision, which seems to imply some level of financial or resource support and, of course, loyalty. The core message is figure out what you truly want and then don't budge on that.
And the people-pleaser contrast
is someone who, according to the source, hasn't really even thought about what she wants. She's more focused on being pretty enough or acting nice enough, and she might adopt positions like being fine with splitting dating costs 50-50, not because she wants it, but because it seems least problematic or she thinks it will scare less people away.
So having strong, maybe even controversial standards might turn people off.
Yes, it might turn away so many people. The source acknowledges that. But it argues the bitch is fearless in saying, yes, this is what I expect, and this is the requirement for you to date me. And through that firmness, she is ultimately going to get exactly what she wants.
And there's one last anecdote here.
A very pointed one. The source shares telling her current boyfriend very early on her view that 50-50 is BS and I think the man should pay the bill.
Wow, that's direct.
Very. And she states she wasn't scared if he decided to walk away because of it. His reaction, as she describes it, was basically, okay, that's what I have to do to get her. And he met the standard.
And the contrast is the people pleaser ending up in relationships built on the man's terms.
Exactly. Because she might follow his lead. Maybe he doesn't ask for what she wants, like flowers, texts, specific dates, gifts, because she didn't have a non-negotiable standard. And, crucially, the consequence of not meeting the standard, which is him not getting to be with her, was never clearly enforced.
Okay. So, pulling all this together, we've really done a deep dive into this source's, well, very distinct perspective.
Definitely.
It's advocating for a significant shift, both internally and externally, away from people-pleasing. And it does this by encouraging the conscious embodiment of traits it redefines under the label bad bitch.
Yeah, emphasizing those mindset changes, specific lifestyle habits, and a really particular approach to dating that's heavily based on high self-worth and very firm standards.
The core message woven throughout seems to be about leveling up, becoming more demanding in life and relationships.
Right, as a path to ultimately getting exactly what we want
Yeah.
and feel we deserve.
And the source does mention a resource for listeners who might want to explore these ideas further, right? A Discord community?
Yes, it mentions a Discord with specific threads on topics like dating, confidence, journaling. It's presented as a space to kind of discuss and potentially apply these concepts with others who are interested.
Offers a bit of a community aspect to this whole journey. Well, this deep dive should give you a pretty clear picture of this source's unique arguments and its overall framework.
Yeah, it's certainly a specific take. Perhaps the true test, reflecting on this source, isn't really about whether defining and upholding your standards might scare some people away.
What is it then?
Maybe it's more about whether you possess that unwavering confidence to define your own worth and pursue your own desires, completely independent of anyone else's perception, or indeed their willingness to meet your terms.